Why should the US flip the bill on both sides of the border?
There's a lot of rage in Canada
Over US President Trump's tariffs. Why would he do such a thing? It's illogical, it's irrational, it's unfriendly. His own people are going to get harmed by it. They're going to pay higher prices. Everybody's going to lose. Why is he doing it? He says there's a trade deficit, but many Canadians already think that that trade deficit is already because we sell our oil at a discount. But that's not the reason he's doing the tariffs. This is not at its root a trade dispute. This is about the US trying to get Canada, a relatively uncooperative cat-like country, meow, to do the right thing. How does a country like the US make Canada do the right thing? Enter tariffs. US President Trump is going to hit us where it hurts. We sell most of our product to the US. In Alberta, it's 90% of our product here goes to the US. In Canada, the average is about 75%. The US is really upset about one thing that we're not doing. It's about the military. It's about our commitments to NATO. It's about our commitments to our biggest ally and friend, the United States, who shields us from Russia and China, shields our airspace. When we need things shot down, they'll shoot them down for us. They want the Canadian federal government to honor its commitment of 2% of GDP to be spent on Canada's military. To date, Canada's only gotten to 1.3% of GDP. That's far lower than most NATO countries. And in fact, when you add in another criteria, that we need to spend 20% of our military budget on new hardware, we come in dead last when you combine those two. Out of 31 or 32 NATO nations, Canada is dead last. We don't live in Europe. We live right beside the United States of America. We share a border. That border is about 8,900 kilometers long, 5,500 miles if you're from the US. Mexican border with the US is only 2,000 miles. And our border is largely undefended, and it's largely remote. And there's a number that's been coming up in the press quite a bit. 43 pounds of fentanyl that have been seized from the Canada-US border on the US side. So they're claiming they're using this as a provocation to place these tariffs on Canada. But I can tell you that's not the real reason. Why should the US flip the bill on both sides of the border? Why should they protect a border of a country they already protect? Now, a lot of Canadians, they hear this 43 pounds of fentanyl number, and they hear it over and over again from the press, and it's compared to the 21,000 pounds of fentanyl seized at the US-Mexican border. The number they don't hear from our paid-off puppet propaganda press here in Canada is 1,155. 1,155 people have been intercepted at the US border over the last 3 years that are on terror watch lists. Contrast that with 199 from Mexico, the Mexican-US border. And now you're getting the real picture of why the US is really concerned about Canada. We don't spend enough on our military. We're letting in every Tom, Dick, and Mohammed into our country, just like they have been over the last few years, except they're changing that now. But we refuse to change that. And we're being very passive-aggressive about our military spending as well. We'll say, yeah, we'll get around to that. We haven't really even set a date when we're going to get to 2% of our GDP. The US is getting really nervous with the Canadian federal government on these issues. And the only way you get an uncooperative country that's your friend and ally to do something is to place tariffs on their products. You're not going to invade us, and they're not going to keep jumping up and down like we are and say, hey, you need to spend 2% on your GDP or else what? What, they're going to stop protecting us? They have to protect us. And that's what we've really said to them. And we've kind of flipped the bird to them and say, well, you still have to protect us. We're on your border. I don't agree with any of these boycotts that we're doing on this side, any of the childish things, any of these countermeasures. Premier Doug Ford in Ontario wants to tariff electricity. I disagree with any of these things. Really, Canadians have lived in the States, as snowbirds. We cross-border shop. Except us here in Alberta, we're not close enough to the border to do that. But I know you guys in Vancouver and Toronto and Montreal definitely cross-border shop. And then, of course, there's Amazon, there's Netflix. This is totally ridiculous. We should just become the 51st state. President Trump's put the offer out there. Those tariffs would drop tomorrow if we all said, yeah, we're going to be the 51st state in the U.S. I don't really care what the rest of Canada does. I live here in Alberta, and I'm ready to become the 51st U.S. state. And I know there's a lot of Albertans that are ready. We're not going to let the rest of Canada dictate our standard of living because they're in the dark ages here. Remember, if you've made it all the way to the end here, that I'm not part of the puppet paid off propaganda press here in Canada. You're not going to hear this point of view from too many other press outlets, or if any of them at all. God bless America. God bless Alberta, USA. Please subscribe, like, and comment below, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.